like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, sometimes a day late in actually getting around to do these videos. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you
Lovely.
doing, Paul?
Well, yeah, not too bad. A busy old weekend, I must admit. It's going to take me the rest of this week to recover from it. Far too much partying at Speedway.
Hey, let loose, did you?
Oh well, yes, just a little bit. It's been full on, but yes, calming down a bit, and
Yeah, me too.
yeah, and you're on, I believe, an island just off the coast of America, known as Crunch Island.
Not on the coast. We're in the middle of the ocean, but
Yeah,
out in Hawaii. That's right.
yeah.
On the
Well,
big island of Hawaii. Yeah,
sorry.
the big island of Hawaii.
That's right. The capital is Honolulu, I believe.
That's right. That's on Oahu. But yeah, that's the Honolulu is the capital city.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Excellent.
rural here, actually. People don't usually think about, Hawaii. Honolulu is a pretty decent sized city.
Yeah.
But where I am, it's pretty rural. There's not much going on.
Well, I mean, as a kid growing up in the, I'm going to say early 70s. I really can't remember much TV up until from about the age of 5 onwards. But the original series of Hawaii 5-0 was always good to watch, and
Yeah,
I always think of, when you think of Hawaii, you think of that iconic music and people paddling like blazes, in their big rowing boats.
That's right. I remember that. I like that new one too. That new 5-0 is pretty good.
Yeah,
The new version.
I haven't watched that one.
I don't keep up on too many shows though.
Well, I was going to say that there's obviously one show that most people have kept up on, and that was a Netflix documentary that was released December the 18th in 2015. When did you first get to watch Making a Murderer?
I can't remember if it was that first. I think it was that first year, but it wasn't right away.
Yep.
I was in transition. I was actually moving from South Korea, and I was in transition. But I was in, I had lived in South Korea for about 8 years teaching English university there.
Yeah.
And I was moving back, and so I was in transition. And I think I watched it that winter. Maybe not right away, but it was that winter that I had first seen it. And being a lad from hey, Dr. Silkman, being a lad from the area, it really it caught my attention maybe more than other people, because being so close. I'm from Fond du Lac area.
Oh wow!
Just on the other side of Calumet County. So
yeah.
Manitowoc, Calumet, and then Fond du Lac. So bordering with them. So that's when I first saw it. Was probably when it came out. I think it wasn't right away though. There was a buzz about it. Everybody was talking about it, and I felt like I was late to the scene already. A couple months late, and so I think over Christmas is when I really saw it. Christmas break, New Year's, like that, and just couldn't stop. Just one after the next one, right? I just couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah. So going back to South Korea, that's very interesting. My sister that lives down in Totnes, which is down near Exeter, they're very good friends. The Swaddle Scots moved to Korea, and I think they're still out there. They've been there for about the same amount of time, So I don't suppose you ever came because they're out there teaching as well,
right?
But I'm sure it's a pretty big place.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of foreign teachers too.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it was my daughter that first introduced me to Making a Murderer. She said to me one day, we were out in Glasgow. She said, "Would the police deliberately frame somebody?" And I said, "Nah, they wouldn't." Knowing the ones that I know in the UK, I'm saying no, they would be too afraid that they would get caught out. I said, there's safeguards in place. She says, well, this case. Have you ever heard of? She says, have you ever heard of Manitowoc? And I said, nah, no. And it's in Wisconsin. And I said, well, I know of a place called Green Bay in Wisconsin, but And then she said, have you ever heard of this Stephen Avery? Nah. And then she said, well, he did these 18 years, got out, was suing the department. Then this photographer gets murdered, and the nephew confesses to the murder. And I said, well, there you go, end of story. What is there to watch? Well, obviously, as most of us have realised, it's not quite as simple as that scenario, is it? What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts having watched it then? I mean, as you say, you've got the local interest, and obviously, for some people, it's a bit embarrassing that it's there,
but not surprising.
I
think that's the thing: embarrassing, but not surprising.
Wow. Yeah,
I feel like living there, being from there, that's kind of it's just a way of life, like, because it's just the way it is. But I don't think law enforcement in general is top notch. It always seemed like there's this fog of paranoia that the cops are gonna pull you over and pull some shit, drop. It's just, and some of it's true and some of it's not. But it's just this the fog of paranoia that builds. So yeah, it's pretty, I guess my first instinct or my first takeaway from it was confusion. Mm-hmm. I felt confused by it, but I felt like I knew enough that I thought that guy deserves a new trial. Like, that was my takeaway. Like, I didn't really, even after watching it the first time, I didn't really understand all the characters and how everything lined up. And it was still a little foggy with how he was accused of this. He was sat in prison for this rape. And so it was still, I felt like I almost immediately wanted to watch it again.
Yes. Yep.
Right. Like the other addict.
Jeff, I was so naive. I didn't realise that it wasn't going to have a happy ending, as it were, and that it was just going to get worse and worse. And I'm actually thinking, surely at some point there's going to be somebody up the ladder, up the food chain, that's going to pull the plug on this and say, no, this has gone on enough. It's time we do something for this poor guy. I mean, obviously, I've been to Manitowoc, and I found it quite a well-to-do place. People say, there isn't a huge amount of money there, but would it be fair to say that most people in Wisconsin, they don't live on scrapyards?
No, most don't.
So there would be that from a local point of view. Maybe not the same sympathy for Steve and Brendan as there would be for normal, well-to-do people.
I mean, I think that's generally accurate. From my take, yeah.
Right.
I mean, my growing up, we were taught the opposite of that. We were taught to be friends with people from salvage yards, and I was actually friends with people from salvage. We were taught to be friends with anybody from any walk of life,
But yes,
But that doesn't mean that was normal. That doesn't mean that it's a fine line. People will be friendly, and then they'll judge you behind your back. Maybe, I don't know.
Wow.
So anyway, but yeah, it's quite the dynamic. Manitowoc is kind of a suburb commute area of Green Bay. I think a lot of people that live in Manitowoc. Green Bay is their center of the universe. I have a cousin that still lives in Manitowoc, and I mean, Green Bay is the center of the universe. He works there, but he lives out in Manitowoc. It's a little cheaper, I think. When you get into the city of Manitowoc, it might be a little bit more expensive right there on the lake. You get the lake shore right there, probably some beautiful houses. I know that golfing is big around, beautiful golf courses in the area. So, but you get out to the rural areas, and it can get cheaper land, wide open, quarries everywhere, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Plenty of places to burn something in a burn barrel. What was pointed out to me a long time back was that back in the 1930s, when the mob was getting basically thrown out of Chicago, a lot of them came north
That's
and
right.
actually infiltrated, if you like, local government. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that the Wisconsin has much of a problem with organized crime, say the mafia, the mob, because the police have basically taken over that corner of the market. Would that be correct?
I mean, I think that there's something to that, but the mafia has been present but never overwhelming in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of a way to characterize it. That it's always been there, being in close proximity to Chicago. It's just there's just no way around it. A lot of
Hmm.
those guys, Al Capone, they would vacation, in Wisconsin. They would get a lot of those outlaws would go and hide in the woods up in
Yeah.
northern Wisconsin, right? So I, is law enforcement their own mafia? I guess it depends who you ask.
Yeah.
Depends
Yeah.
who's at the brunt of their assault. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we hear about this club in Wisconsin that basically runs everything, and you have to be in this club, otherwise you don't get on. You end up being chased out like they got chased out, and the one of the theories is that, of course, the whole civil suit had to be destroyed because that would then lead to such an inspection, if you like, of what was going on corruption wise within Manitowoc. Do you give that any credence as a local, or well, a native of Wisconsin?
I mean, I think if there's any like club, it's like an unwritten club. It's an unwritten rules.
Yes.
It's not a formal thing where they have meetings and
Yeah.
planning. It's just you cover my back, I cover your back. You shut your mouth. I get. I
Yeah.
think it's cutthroat too. At the same time, as soon as in that kind of culture, if there's an officer, not let's say officer, but whatever, if someone smells blood, they'll go
Mm.
after the other person to take
Mm.
them down. It's
Mm.
cutthroat. So there's no
Yeah.
real loyalty in it. I don't think. I don't think
Right.
you can. Whenever it's like that, I don't think you can really trust others when it. But I mean, it's if you everywhere has corruption, right? Everywhere
Mm.
has corruption.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's important to remember that it's one thing for us to point out like they're corrupt, they're corrupt, they're corrupt, they're corrupt. But at some point, don't you have to say, wow, our culture is corrupt,
Oh yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's us. This
Yeah.
is a reflection of our society. It's not, it's those people. It's always those people, right? It's always those people, right? It's different. It's
Yeah.
not us, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so at some point, you have to realize that, yeah, there's a club and we're all in it. We're
Yeah.
all part
Yeah.
of it, right? And
Yeah.
so, um, everybody to some. So I don't know. I don't really buy into the club kind of thing. I don't
Right.
know if it. I don't know if it's like helpful to go down that road for me or not. I don't know if that's going to
Yeah.
bear any. I don't know if it's going to bear any fruit, but I think there's a definite point towards when if this case had turned sour for them and it would have looked like if they didn't get a conviction, maybe there was something, and maybe there is an open investigation into what went on with this Avery Teresa Hallbach fiasco, and why didn't they get a conviction on him, and would that have started something bigger?
Mm.
I mean, I guess the only counter to that is they're more in the limelight now than they were before, right? So
Yeah.
either
Oh
way,
yeah.
it would have backfired on them. They didn't
Yeah.
keep anything. They didn't keep the lid on it.
Oh no.
Ultimately, the lid popped off. So
Yep. Yeah.
no, it's an
Absolutely.
interesting question.
Well, moving on then, because you were saying that you'd watched Making a Murderer back in sometime in 2016, maybe around the same sort of time as I was watching it. What um, What was it about the documentary then that irritated you most about what you saw?
I think that Key stuck out to me. It was like the first thing that I was really. I think that Key and Colburn, the way he spoke, the way that I've had interactions with law enforcement in rural Wisconsin, and they remind me of Colburn a lot. Like I
Mm,
feel like he fits the cake. He's the cookie cutter image of a lot of rural Wisconsin officers that maybe in my teenage years they were messing with me and my friends, and maybe we weren't up to any good, but maybe it just seemed like, as I told you before, there's this era, this like fog of paranoia around law
mm,
enforcement because they're obnoxious. They're pulling people over, on the freeway and causing problems. They're just yeah, I don't know. They're just harassing people a lot, freaking people out, driving behind them and close and doing weird stuff. And in the way we see it now, framing people for crimes. And,
yeah, yeah,
it's happened in other instances.
yeah,
Not to say that Wisconsin is this, like, I don't know, special case, right? I don't know that corruption is more in Wisconsin than it would be in Illinois. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Or
yes,
we don't really know. So it's like, but it is a problem, and it's a patchwork. I think it's a patchwork of departments that you might get a good one over here,
yeah,
and then when you're in their jurisdiction, they're really fair with people, and you drive through. But then when you drive to the next town, it's a new
mm,
jurisdiction, and they'll pull you over and give you a ticket and try to squeeze you for some cash if it's nothing else. You know what I mean? If it's not a criminal,
wow,
it just it's all about money. It's all about collecting revenue for the system to keep going, right? So
yeah,
that's how I see it. Once they get you
sure,
in there, that's what I'll tell you. Once they get you in the system, they got your name, they got you, then they just keep going after you because
right,
you're a new customer, I guess,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
an easy target, yeah, yeah,
right.
and so obviously you've ended up with a YouTube channel. Can you give us a bit of background as to that process? What having watched the documentary, you obviously felt you wanted to do more than just tell friends and neighbours that you've watched it. You wanted to speak out about it. How did that process come about?
Well, I guess the germ of this idea was at least for this series that I'm doing now, the one discussing a murderer.
Yep.
It's like the germ of the idea was I wish I could sit down with everybody who is addicted like we are, as Dr. Silverman likes to say.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish we could all just watch it and talk about it in real time.
Sure.
And so I kind of threw this idea out, like not willy nilly, but just kind of generally, just kind of threw this idea out and got some people interested. Just went with it. Didn't do a whole lot of planning on the first week, and felt like it worked. I think if you are familiar, the first week we did it live, and due to Netflix um, copyright infringement, you can't show the image and the sound at the same
Yeah.
time, but you can listen to the sound. So I was able to find a way to just put an overlay on top of that, and
Yeah.
so then we started pre-recording, and I felt like that really worked. I guess, yeah, the idea was that everybody can make their own timeline. Everybody can make their own presentation about what they think happened. But the one thing that we all have is the documentary,
Hmm.
and that's kind of why I felt like it. And for me, it's really been exciting and exceeded our expectations, I think, and has really been fun. It's really been a good
Well,
time.
yeah, you've done a fantastic job. I mean, I was just browsing through, and when you compare, this is something that the dude would definitely look at. He'd compare the number of subscribers with the number of views of the video, and you're doing a fantastic job. And obviously, the one of the things that we're very keen on in this community is to get everybody, their subscriptions up and up and up, so that they're spreading the word more and more and more. But sorry, can I take you further back then to having watched the documentary, then deciding to start doing a YouTube channel in the first place? What was that process?
Well, I think it's like, why did I want to do it?
Well, it's so obviously having watched it in 2016. There's it's a case of, certainly for me, I didn't watch the documentary and immediately think, oh, I'm going to start doing a YouTube channel. Not like, for example, what the dude did. That was the first thing he went and did. He went out and got a computer and the software and everything, so that he could start doing. What possessed him to do it, I don't know, but we're thankful that he did. And he even spent a whole weekend, believe it or not, uprooting his auntie's tree. This bride and joined this tree, had to uproot it in the garden and place it at the other side of the garden so that his shed could go there, which is the studio that I'm in. But as I say, not everybody does that. My initial reaction was to check up on one or two things on the internet, get Sheriff Herman's phone number and phone him up. And I spent a good 6 months harassing him like buggery, telling him how bad things were, and he was trying to calm me down and all that sort of stuff, So I just wondered what your sort of process was, if you like.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in podcasting. I've done it before. Right. I've done some things in the past. When I was in South Korea, I did some radio work, and so it's not that I was like looking for the right project or anything, but yeah, it was kind of like I wanted a YouTube channel before, but here's the thing: is like it's a tough road. It's hard, especially starting out. And the thing is I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I didn't do it. You know what I mean? I didn't develop it. And so when I got in this community, I think it was a couple years ago now. So what are we in 2022? Must have been 2020.
Yeah.
When I went to check up to see if Stephen Avery, what the hell is going on with this anyway? I mean, it's been years since that documentary came out. Is there any movement,
Yeah.
And maybe this, I think this was after Making a Murderer 2 had come out. So that was even kind of cooling off a little bit, Yeah. And stumbled into community, found Foul Play and found those cats over there, and started doing lives with them and kind of building confidence and knowledge of understanding of what's going on and so just kind of backed into it, I guess. Things just kind of lined up for it, and then getting the scholarship from the Dudes Advocacy Foundation.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the push. That was the nudge over the edge, to like go and do it. You know what I mean? Like no excuses anymore. Just go do it.
Yeah, I mean that was the Advocacy Foundation. Very much the HOD is at the heart of everything. I it was funny. We had a keep talking till they're walking event, and everybody was asking me about this, that, and the other. And I said, look, I'm going to have to go and talk to the headmaster about this because. He's like that. He's like the one in control of everything.
That's right.
But it's really good that you've come on board through that Advocacy Foundation. But it was something that you were wanting to do anyway, and the foundation has helped in some way to get started.
It was the kick in the pants. It was that that like now you got to do it because someone's put their name on you. You know what I mean? So I think that's, and 99 or 90% of life is showing up, right?
Yeah.
And 90% of doing this is having the gear to do it, right? And the time, right? But you have to have the stuff, and honestly, getting a scholarship like that builds notoriety for you. People kind of go, oh, well, maybe we should take a look at his channel then. And so that, not just the equipment, but also the notoriety that comes with it, that people want to give you a chance then, because there's so much content out there, Paul. It's,
oh yes. Yeah.
It's and even in the Making a Murderer community, there's so much content. And that's great. Keep it coming, right?
It is. It is. The only downside I would say is that for some people within our community, I feel almost as if the horrors that Steve and Brendan are having to endure, which is basically being buried alive. When somebody feels so badly for them that at times we sort of lash out at people within our own community because we're so annoyed at what we've seen done to Steve and Brendan. Did you
Hmm.
come across any of that sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
It's
it's outrageous. Like, you know, I mean, I've said it, I'm a broken record, but it's like a thousand times. It's like what they did to Steven is bad enough.
mm,
He's
yeah,
an adult, and he did point a gun and threaten
yes,
his cousin. I mean, they had a reason to be angry at him, but there's
yeah,
absolutely no reason to be angry and hold a revenge against Brendan. There's no
yeah,
evidence against Brendan. The
yeah,
kid never did anything to hurt a fly, and so
yeah.
it's like it's not the saying pointing a gun it means they can frame you for murder because you pointed a gun, but that's the outrageous part, is that's the cherry on top that just is like just wants the if the fire wasn't burning hot enough, then you have the aspect of Brendan, and it's
Hmm.
just like that's where people find that anger. I think it just wells up inside seeing subjecting that to a child basically.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, I mean,
they treated him like
sorry.
a child, but they tried him as an adult.
Yeah, it's and for me the most shocking thing is when you've got Judge Hamilton asking Laura Nyrider, are the police allowed to bluff? And Laura has to say, well, yes, they are allowed to. And the whole use of the word bluff, it sounds so innocuous, doesn't it? It's but what it is, it's lying to somebody to get them to change their story.
Right.
And the fact that she then has to say, well, yeah, they are allowed to bluff. I wish she'd have said, do you know what, Hamilton? Legally, they are allowed to, but morally, do you think that's such a good idea? Because now we know that Illinois has banned lying to during interrogations. So yeah, it is a difficult one. The Going back to Steve and I mean, he's a convicted felon for the Sandy Morris incident. Um, if and when he gets out, it means, for example, that he'll struggle to visit any other country, won't he? Because of that, the restriction of that. And you make a good point, that it's Steve is no angel. He might end up being the patron saint of wrongful convictions, but even some people in our community have sort of taken issue with that sort of terminology. But it's just what they've made him, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's um, just as you say, terrible for Brendan. The way that they've sort of treated him as collateral damage. And what's always shocked me is that obviously, Brendan's brother is one of the main suspects, and you wonder, as you were saying about people in Wisconsin, it's all about money. And I used to say, surely one brother wouldn't just stand by and let another brother rot in prison. But unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a tough one. It really is a tough one to try to understand what's going on in Bobby's head. And I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt, considering a lot of things. And we don't know. I mean, we really
Yeah.
don't know what was we and especially because we don't have that November 9th interview. I believe it's November 9th. It's the interview we don't have with him. We don't know what was said in there. And
Hmm.
because we don't have that major piece, I mean, there were bones found in the Dassey burn barrel. Were
Yes.
they going to threaten him eventually down the line and say, "Hey, we got you, kid.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the last person to have seen her alive, or do you think it might have been your uncle?"
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a long conversation, is it?
No. No.
And did he do it to save his own ass because he knew that law enforcement could frame people, and because
Hmm.
he's been a witness to that, he's bared witness in his uncle's life. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, you can blame Bobby for covering his own ass, and why is he covering his ass if he didn't do anything wrong?
Hmm.
But you don't know what it's like to be a 19-year-old kid at
Yeah.
that time, and understanding that they can lock you up, and they don't really even need a reason. Actually, they probably could have said, "We have enough reason, we have enough evidence to lock you up, Bobby. So
Mm.
what's it going to be?" And I don't know if that's the case, but um, it's a tough one. And then you wonder now, with Zellner, sniffing around him, is he willing to take a little heat to maybe help his brother and uncle get out? I don't know. Is he willing to? I guess he doesn't have a choice in the matter. She's going to point at him anyway, but it's hard to understand and get in the head. And I think on the podcast that I think it was just a few hours ago that we premiered it,
Yes.
and Kel made the point that even if Bobby did it, we don't have the evidence, and we don't want to go around being hypocrites because that's what we think happened to Steven, being
Exactly.
falsely accused. So we
Yes.
want to be really careful about who we accuse of what, and it's a cluster. The whole case is just messed, right? From all of the Manitowoc fingers all over it that should have never been there. So it's just a cluster. Sorry,
Yes.
excuse my language, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I in one of my conversations with Sheriff Herman, it was later on. It was I first contacted him in April, May, June, July, August. I'm going to say it was around about August time, and I was talking to him about the my annoyance was the fact that the conflict of interest you cannot deny. And you could tell he was embarrassed about it. But he stopped me mid-sentence and he said, "Paul, let me tell you something. Mr. Avery," because they never used the name Stephen Avery. It's always Mr. Avery, that distancing thing. "Mr. Avery will spend the rest of his life in prison." And I took that in two ways. One, it's a line that he's used as sheriff for so many years with the people of Manitowoc, trust me, he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. But it also suggested to me that there are mechanisms in place, and we've seen it already with the Court of Appeals, that they're going to close ranks on this, and they are not wanting any cats let out the bag, so to speak. Would that be would you concur with that?
Agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite shocking, isn't it, when the head of the sheriff's department says, that guy's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. It's like, well, what if Kathleen Zellner comes up with concrete proof that he's innocent? So you've actually ditched that from your mind completely.
Well, it's how they sleep well at night, knowing
Yeah,
that they locked up this guy that was the target of their ambitions for a long time.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we kind of were looking at that and covering it. They were trying to get him on all sorts of stuff.
Oh
They're
yeah,
they're they're always trying to find a crime to fit Stephen Avery. In 1985, they were like, Why are we arresting Stephen Avery? Because he fits the profile, even though he didn't fit the profile.
yes,
But
yeah,
that's why he's being arrested, not because he did it, but because he fits the profile and it's something we can pin on him, right?
oh yeah, yeah,
That's why it's just yeah, they were trying to get him for a long time, and they've managed to keep him behind bars for most of his life, and in that way they've already really won, sadly
yes.
enough.
Do you think that they thought that being sentenced to 32 years, he would just kind of give up and say, "Look, okay, I did it. Let me out.
Well, I mean, I'm sure
parole me."
that they just didn't anticipate making a murderer.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're probably ready for his appeals. Okay, get an appeal. That's fine. We'll deal with that when it comes. But they didn't expect to be the most notable false case. Is it the biggest case on the planet? Sometimes it seems like more people talk about this one. I mean, OJ was bigger, maybe, but
Well, I think, yeah,
for
yeah,
most notable cases. I mean, other than serial killers,
yeah.
gosh, I don't know what you put up there. But it'd be an
Well,
interesting podcast to talk about other notable cases, because this one really is worldwide.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the 20 episodes. It's the biggest. I'm sure in terms of its length of the show, but also the amount of people that, as you say, have watched it. I mean, amazing going to Australia, having a Brendan Dassey T-shirt, and people, Aussies saying, "Oh, what's the latest news?" And that's in Australia. When well, as I'm sure you've probably discovered, there's quite a lot of interest.
I got two of them on my panel.
Over there in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you ever need me to come on and do some subtitles for you, because I know they can be a bit difficult to understand at times. I'm only kidding, Doctor. I'm only kidding. Well, as I say, your videos are going down incredibly well. Hopefully, we'll start seeing the subscribership going up and up and up. I mean, the dude just before he passed away, he was up to 7,000 subscribers. He was the really the sort of biggest sort of single channel out there, and he was indeed the source of a lot of information for people. Did you get a chance to see any of his videos?
Oh yeah,
over the years,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's been a while since I've looked at them, but yeah, definitely saw some, and people still reference them, so I still go back and see them periodically.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, for such a smart fellow, it was always bizarre to me that he would try and argue that that fella there was British. I mean, that's just absolutely ludicrous, isn't it?
Captain Crunch?
Yeah. There's no way he. Would you? Are you gonna carry on the flag for the dude?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I haven't looked into that one. That might be its own podcast.
Well,
because he's such an. I thought it was an American serial, but that doesn't mean that he has to be an American captain. It's true.
Well,
we don't know. I mean, do we ever hear him speak?
Yes.
Like?
His voice. Yes, his voice is that of the Huckleberry Hound and a few others. Yogi Bear, Dawes Butler is the voice actor.
But I don't know.
So yeah, it is. It's not a thick American accent, but it is a slight American accent. But yeah, if you want to keep the flag flying for Captain Crunch being British, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that one.
You take that one. Good.
No
now I'm gonna say cheerio, let you go, because have you got well, before you go, how many more Discussing a Murderers are people going to get to?
Well, we're at episode. We will record episode 12.
Yep.
On Wednesday.
Right.
And so that will finish episode 5 of Making a Murderer. So you can expect at least 10 more. At least 10 more episodes. So that would put us at 22. So we're about halfway there on this season. Wow. And I mean, I don't know if we've ever said this publicly, but Yeah, T1, good question. We are going to do Making a Murder Season 2 after we finish Making a Murder Season 1. And all of the primary panel have agreed to come back for Making a Murderer Season 2. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, excellent, excellent. Keep them coming. And what I'll do is, obviously, in the description below, I'll put the link to your channel so that they can anybody that hasn't already subscribed to your channel can get over there and then get notified. It's notified straight away, because that's the main advantage. Is that as soon as anything is being released, you'll know about it. You'll be one of the first to be told about it.
Right.
And really just keep doing what you're doing, which is absolutely great. The more people talking about it, and it's, for me, it's the beauty of the community is so far spread. As you say, Australia, you're here in Hawaii, people in America, even people in rural Scotland.
There you go. Even rural Scotland.
Even rural Scotland. Talking of which, can you hear the dogs moaning in the background there?
Oh yeah. That's all right. Though.
That's because they want fed and they want taken for their walk, because they're saying, "Come on, Dad, it's this is far later than normal." So I'm going to say cheerio. Stop havering. I would like to thank the people who have contributed on the side, but I'm going to leave the last word to you, Jeff, and if you can thank people for joining us, and just a final closing message, that would be great.
Yeah, all right on. Well, yeah, thanks everybody in the chat. Looking forward to continuing on with the podcast, and I hope everybody out there can find some detail that gets them through to the next one. And I hope we see Zellner's filing, and I hope it's substantial.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
I think it will be. Thank you, Jeff. Hope I've not kept you too late, and I shall walk dogs while you go and prepare for your next 10 discussing murderers.
All right.
You've got your work cut out, pal. You've got your work cut out.
All right. Love.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.